I have to admit, for those of us who have any old school, old world chivalry in our souls, for those of us that have wives or daughters, we all have moms, this will be a very difficult episode to watch, because the way historic Islam treats women, and by that I mean whippings, beatings, killings, rapes, horrific crimes, sex slavery, starting with Muhammad himself, by the way, again, starting with Muhammad himself, as you're going to see. This is tough. It's tough. I'm letting you know ahead of time, and I'm sorry. But this is Islam. This is historic Islam, starting with the life of Muhammad himself. If you lived in an Islamic state, and you were a Muslim woman, and then you decided to become a Christian, and it was found out, they take you, they say, come back, and you say no, and then they start to beat you. There are records of women literally being imprisoned and then being beaten daily, and asked, do you want to come back to Islam? And they beat them, and then they just keep them in prison. And this goes on until they crack or until they die. Now, one reason that so-called moderate Muslim jurists are facing such difficulties, the moderates, is due to the fact that Islam is a closed system of thought on certain issues. Once the ancient revered scholars reach a consensus, the matter is final, it's closed. In other words, if something is true, it's true for all time. Muslims believe in absolutes. They don't believe in moral relativism. And Sharia law is true, and it's true for all time, and it can't be changed. And another reason that these moderates have such a hard time is because the historical record is so clear and extensive regarding what Muhammad himself said concerning those where they professed faith in his mission and then said, no, I'm out of here. They apostatized. I quote, Allah's apostle said, the blood of a Muslim who confesses that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and that I am his apostle, cannot be shed except in 3 cases. In cases of murder, a married person who commits illegal sexual intercourse, and the one who reverts from Islam, an apostate, and leaves the Muslims. From the mouth of Muhammad himself. To try and change or subvert Islamic orthodoxy in points of law or theology such as this one is to question and quarrel with Muhammad himself or even God himself. And this is also considered a crime. And it has resulted in a lot of moderate Muslim scholars being threatened or killed throughout the Middle East. Books have been written on it. PBS did a special on it. Muslim professors who say, maybe we should just try and separate Islam and Sharia. Fatwas are issued against them, and they have been killed. All right, let's quickly look at some current abuses of human rights under Sharia law. Violations of human rights in discussion in these 3 nations, Pakistan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, as well as most other Islamic nations, are well documented, they are widespread, they are systemic, and in some ways, they're systematic. It's choreographed. The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom places all 3 of those nations in the top 8 of its countries of particular concern. And that body of people is the only independent government body in the world tasked with focusing solely on religious freedom. The crimes that they document against individuals include arrest, detention, disappearance, their bodies are simply never found, murder, and the state crime of impunity, where the state is guilty of a crime. Impunity is when, and I quote, the state failure to prevent or punish religious freedom violations. And this body of people documents how the absence of accountability breeds lawlessness and the breakdown of justice. This is impunity, and it encourages individuals to attack and even kill those who dissent from or fail to embrace others' religious views. This happens in Egypt, it happens in Pakistan, where individuals or a mob will literally kill Christians, the authorities know who did it, and they don't prosecute them because of Sharia law. Well, Nobel laureate, and I might pronounce her name incorrectly, Shireen Ebadi, she's a Muslim woman. She bemoans this practice and its reasoning. She says, and I quote, "International human rights laws are breached under the pretext of cultural relativity. Some Muslims, under the pretext that democracy and human rights are not compatible with Islamic teachings and the traditional structure of Islamic societies, have justified despotic governments and continue to do so." You see, Islamic ideology demands that the safety of the ummah, the community, that the safety of the ummah means that they've got to be protected from the corruption of religion and morals. And this requires that those in authority suppress the individual practice of religion, the preaching of the gospel, the questioning of Muhammad's legitimacy. I mean, the logic is simple. Inherent in a Muslim's apostasy, or for that example, a Catholic or a Coptic Christian's assertion that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Savior of the world, inherent in that is the contention that Muhammad is not the true prophet. And such a declaration is a crime of blasphemy under Sharia law, for which non-Muslims and Muslims who convert to Christianity have to be arrested and end up being brutalized. But it is this very expression of Christian belief and conscience that must be protected as a fundamental human right. As the European Court of Human Rights ruled in the Sunday Times case, they said, this is fun, the freedom of expression is applicable not only to information or ideas that are favorably received or regarded as inoffensive or as a matter of indifference, but also to those that offend, shock, or disturb the state or any sector of the population. So, on one hand, the Saudi Constitution claims to protect human rights in accordance with Islamic Sharia. But in practice, it brazenly rejects human rights. It rejects human rights laws. In fact, the Saudi Arabian Market Information Resource, right, this is a branch of Saudi Arabia, boldly explains Saudi Arabia's position concerning human rights under Sharia law. It says, quote, "It is the fundamental assumption of the polity of Saudi Arabia that the Holy Quran is more suitable for Saudi Muslims than any other secular constitution. This assumption must be viewed in the context of a nation which is completely Islamic." Yeah, I wonder why. "Hence, no churches, no synagogues, or temples, or shrines of other religions exist. No proselytizing by other faiths is allowed."